Welcome to the Learn the Basics USA Online Library webinar tonight. My name is Julie Evener. I'm the Director of Library Services for the University of St. Augustine. I have a master's degree in Library and Information Science from the University of South Carolina, and I've been with the University of St. Augustine over 5 years now. So I'm excited to talk to you about the library today. And we're going to use some sort of interactive technology during the session tonight. So either have your cell phone handy or open up another tab in your browser window. We're going to start off with a little poll. All right, so I've got a little poll here. So either, let me see if that worked. Oh, there it is. All right, so either go to this website listed here, I also just put it in the chat box, or text to this number, or text this message to this number with your cell phone, and go ahead and vote. Just trying to find out what kind of representation we've got here from the different programs. All right, we've got 3 people voting so far, all FlexDPT. Oh, we've got 1 DHSC. We're going to be using this poll, the same type of poll, a little bit later too, so it's a good idea to sort of get in the groove of using it here. And it looks like most of you have, so that's great. I've got 4 people who have responded so far. I'll give the other couple of people just another minute to respond here. So again, what you're doing is either going to the website here, pollev.com/julieevener049, and voting there, or you can text. First, what you would do is text this here, julieevener049, to, so instead of a phone number, you would put in 37607, and then once you do that, you can type in the letter of your vote corresponding. So it seems like with this, in this case, it might be a little bit easier to go to the website. This is a neat tool called Poll Everywhere, and you can also use it in live classes, things like that. And in that case, if you're in a live class, the text feature is a little bit more handy in a face-to-face class. All right, we've got a Flex MOT. This is a good little warm-up, isn't it, to the class? Okay, well, we'll leave that alone for now. We'll go back to our main screen. Looks like we've got a pretty good mix, some Flex DPT, Flex MOT, DHSC, so that's a good little mix that we have. So I'll keep that in mind as we go through the presentation and try to tailor my presentation to meet the needs of you as my audience. So some general objectives for tonight. So after this presentation, students, you will hopefully be able to identify useful resources and tools available on the library's website, choose an online database appropriate for your searches, search an online database effectively using filters and limits when needed, find the full text of needed articles, and request the full text of an article through interlibrary loan if necessary. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about. Most of that time is going to be spent on the online databases, journal articles, that sort of a thing, but I do want to go over at the beginning of the presentation here some other tools and resources available on the library's website that you might not know about. So let's start exploring the library website. All right, so this picture is representative of the library catalog, which is accessible on the library's website. And the library's website, by the way, we'll go to it in a minute, but it's the library tab on MyUSA. So if you go to MyUSA, one of those little tabs across the top is called Library. Click on that, and you'll be on the library's website. So the library catalog You can search the library catalog to find out what materials the library holds on all of our campuses, including books, bone models, treatment tables, and more. There's also information on the library's website about how distance education students can request that we ship books. So if there's a book that we have in our circulating books collection that you want us to ship to your home because you'd never come to a campus, for example, our DHSC student who's joining us today, we can do that. We can ship that book to you, and there's information on the website about how to go about requesting that and how all of that works. So the library catalog is a great resource for finding out what physical stuff the library has as far as books and bone models and treatment tables and things like that. Particularly useful for UFlex students when you're on campus over the weekends. You can look ahead of time to see kind of what choices you have as far as different kinds of bone models and things like that. Okay, this image is just representative of ebooks. We've got lots of ebooks, not those exact ones on the Kindle in the picture here, but it's just representing that we do have ebooks. We have quite a few, actually, a lot of good titles. We'll look at those on the website in a minute. We have a tool, this is fairly new. It's a resource called Grammarly. So this is to help you polish your writing, essentially. So what you can do is you can type out a paper for class, sign up for Grammarly, which is absolutely free to sign up for when you sign up using your USA email address. And basically you can copy and paste your paper for your class into Grammarly, and it will correct your grammar for you. It'll give you some tips and hints for how to improve your writing more so and more accurately than something like Microsoft Word would do. So this is a great tool available through the library's website to our students. And like I said, if you register for this using your usa.edu email address, there won't be any charge for you. We've also got citation style guides with common examples of citations in both AMA style and APA style, which are the two that are used most often at the University of St. Augustine. And as a matter of fact, not only can you look at sort of a list of common examples for AMA, but we also have the entire AMA Manual of Style, full text of it, online as an ebook for students to use. So a lot of good resources as far as citing your sources and looking at those resources and citing them correctly in the style required for your program. We also have videos. This page is representative of the videos that we have, and these are actually some videos that we do have online through the library. So we've got a videos page with a lot of good examples of videos for different techniques and use in different courses and things like that. Oh, and more. So let's look and see what else there is on the library's website. So like I said, a tab on My USA. This is the main page here. See, Grammarly is listed here. This is how you can register for Grammarly. You can click on the link here and register using your USA email address and get registered for that. We also have library chat, which is something I wanted to point out to you. It's not currently active. We do have the hours listed underneath it of when it's active, when it's available. But when it is available, you can chat in real time with one of our library employees. Not necessarily me all the time. We've got 3 other library employees who man this chat, so depending on the time of day and that sort of a thing. But you can chat with us in real time and ask your questions. It's a little maybe less intimidating than calling on the phone, but a little quicker answer maybe than an email. So that's an option that you have as well. Go back up to the top here. Some of the other things that I pointed out before, ebooks. Here's the page. All about ebooks. You can click on the All eBooks page to see them all. You can click on a title to go right to that ebook. So we've got lots of great titles available. Library catalog is here. This is where I was saying you could search to see what materials the library holds. We've got references and writing styles. Are those common examples of citations that I was mentioning. and you can click here, AMA Manual of Style, to go to the entire AMA Manual of Style, the full text of that manual online through the library. Okay, I think that's, oh, videos was the other thing. Now the videos are a little bit more secure, as up to now all of this has been publicly accessible as far as what we've looked at, and I haven't had to log in to the portal. But if you do log into the portal, you can see videos. So that's how you make those more accessible. And also for you Flex students who do come to campus, there's also a page here, Student Printing Info. This is where you can go to add money to your account to print and copy on campus. So that can be helpful as well. Any questions right off the bat about the library's website or any of the resources we've covered so far? You can go ahead and type in the chat box if there are any questions. Okay, I'm going to assume Kathy's speaking for most of you there when she says no questions so far, but if you're still typing, please continue to do so, and I'll answer your question when it pops up. And feel free to type in a question at any time during this presentation. You don't need to wait until I stop and ask if there are any questions. Okay, so let's move on now, and let's talk about finding information. So it's pretty easy to find information online, right? You just type anything into a Google search, and you can get thousands of results from that. But the question you need to ask, though, are those results reliable and relevant? By relevant, I mean that the information that you find answers the question that you have, whether that's a clinical query sort of a question or something that you're, in general trying to find out. And reliable means that the information comes from a trustworthy source. So if you're just doing a search on Google or even Google Scholar, what it's doing is it's taking the keywords that you're putting in and it's doing a keyword matching search. So it's looking to see what web pages out there have those words that you typed in included in it. So it's sort of a broad search, right? You're searching the entire web. It's pulling back all of those resources. You can get so many results that it gets a little bit overwhelming even. All right, let's go back to the polls. I'm going to start a new one here. Hold on. Let me pause that for a minute while I pull up another poll. Okay, start thinking about your answer to this because we're going to answer a poll about it. Okay, so this one's going to be similar to what we did before with the poll, except this time rather than choosing a specific answer, you're going to answer with whatever you want to answer, whatever you would fill in the end of that sentence. Searching for relevant and reliable journal articles is what? What do you think that is? And the good thing about this is it's totally anonymous, so you can be very honest on how you feel that process goes for you. Time consuming, yes. I hear that a lot. Tedious, difficult, sometimes difficult, I think that. Takes time. Time seems to be a key word here that we're hearing. Okay, I think that's great. I think those are great answers. I think they're very, very typical answers that I get from, not only students, but from faculty too. Anybody that I talk to, it's easy to get lost. Okay. Yeah, so anybody that I talk to, actually gives me similar answers, whether they're a student or even your faculty members sometimes. So I think these are definitely legitimate concerns, and I'm hoping that part of what I can do tonight is help that to ease that process a little bit for you and make it a little bit easier and less tedious and less time-consuming for you to find reliable and relevant journal articles. So databases. A database is an organized, purposeful collection of materials. Most often when we're talking about library databases, we're talking about a collection of journal articles, but depending on what the database is, it could also be images or videos or you know, any number of things. We have one database in our collection called the Mental Measurements Yearbook that's actually a collection of information on tests and measures. So that's another example of a database that has something other than journal articles. Some examples that we have of databases that we're talking about here, we've got PubMed, CINAHL, ProQuest, ERIC. Those are some examples. The reason that databases are important, they're purposeful, which basically translates into you're getting reliable information. By purposeful, I mean that databases are, the things that are in databases aren't just from anywhere on the internet like from Google or Google Scholar. They're actually chosen to be included in the database based on their reliability, their trustworthiness, how significant that particular journal is, things like that. So only the most reliable resources are included in a database. It's a purposeful collection. It's also an organized collection, which means that you can do searching more than just the keyword matching like you can do with a search engine like Google. So what I mean is that you can filter down a lot more than that. So in Google or Google Scholar, we can put in keywords. Sometimes we can, on Google Scholar, right, we can do different publication dates. We can narrow down by that, but we can't narrow by type of article. We can't narrow by you know, some of the other things that we might want to narrow by that makes it easier and quicker to get to that information that is that's going to be most relevant to what we're looking for. So because databases are organized and purposeful, they make it easier and quicker to find reliable and relevant information. So does that mean, am I saying, you know, don't use Google Scholar, shaking my finger at you? No, of course not. If that's what you're comfortable using and you've had good results with it, I don't see any reason not to continue using Google Scholar. But sort of a little dare for you here. I think that once you get the hang of a particular database, you might find that you're actually finding the information that you need quicker, more efficiently, more easily. You don't have to dig through as many results a lot of the time, and it basically ensures that the articles that you're finding, the results that you are finding, are going to be good, trustworthy sources. So you actually might find that it's easier to search a database than it is to search Google Scholar, for example. Okay, so let's do another poll. Again, let me pause it while I get it up for you here. Start thinking about your answer. Got to figure out some sort of neat transition to get to these easier. Okay, that should be live. So now think about how you would fill in the rest of this sentence. The hardest thing about searching the literature is. Inputting the right keywords. Yes. What else do we think the hardest thing might be? Maybe we're all in agreement that it's inputting the right keywords. See, now I thought the word cloud would be a good idea, but it gets a little confusing. I think next time I'll switch it to the list. Okay, results. Finding results that match the topic, I think is what that one is saying. Yeah, I gotta switch this to a different way of doing it. That's a little confusing. Response settings. I'll set it up for next time. Okay, so basically we're seeing that it might be difficult to know which keywords you should put in. Might be difficult to get results that maybe match what your topic actually is. You might get a lot of results, but they don't really seem to be helping you very much, and that's actually related to your keywords. So that's sort of a related issue. So that's interesting to know. Okay, so let's try some of this. Let's try searching some databases. Now, the two that I'm going to focus on in the session tonight are CINAHL Complete and PubMed. CINAHL Complete is actually brand new to the University of St. Augustine. We just started subscribing to it at the beginning of this year. And PubMed is sort of the old trusty database that we've been really using a lot. And one of the benefits of PubMed is that it's a free database. So, once you graduate from the University of St. Augustine, no matter where you end up working, no matter what sort of resources you have access to, you can always access PubMed. CINAHL Complete, on the other hand, is a rather expensive commercial database, and if you're working, in a small clinic or something like that, they're not necessarily going to be paying for you to access something like CINAHL Complete. So it's just something to consider, that if you get comfortable with PubMed, that could be a sort of a career-long benefit for you, because you can always go back to PubMed and use that no matter what other paid resources you do or don't have access to. So this is our list of online databases. This is here on the Finding Journal Articles page of the Library tab. So if you go to the Library tab, click on Finding Journal Articles, you've got a nice list of online databases. There's a lot here, a lot to choose from, and you can kind of explore some of them. Like I said, we're going to talk about CINAHL Complete and PubMed tonight. ProQuest is another really good one. If you're looking specifically for dissertations or theses, ProQuest Dissertations and Theses Global is a good one for that. If you're looking specifically for systematic reviews, we have the Cochrane database of systematic reviews. Although I will say that the Cochrane systematic reviews are also indexed in PubMed, so you can also access those and more in PubMed. So you might not, depending on what you're doing, you might not need to do a separate search just in Cochrane. You can do a search in PubMed and link to the Cochrane results. We also have a couple of OT-specific databases, OT Search and OT Seeker, which are really great. Mental Measurements Yearbook, I mentioned that. It's a database of tests and measures, information about those tests and measures, and who created them and tested them and that sort of a thing. So some great options here. What I'm going to say is that if you're doing a pretty thorough sort of a project where you're trying to find really all of the information that you can on a topic, which I think you'll build up to. If you're later in your program, then you might be getting to this point where you're really trying to get a good, thorough literature review sort of a thing. In that case, you would actually want to use multiple databases. I would say 2 or 3 at least. But if you're looking for less information than that, maybe you're just needing to find one article on a particular topic for an assignment or something like that, you can basically just pick one of these databases, maybe PubMed or CINAHL, which we'll go over tonight, and that would be the only one you would need to search if you're just looking for maybe one article. So keep that in mind. All right, I'm going to go to CINAHL here. and it's going to ask you, any of the library's online resources are going to ask you to log in with your USA email address and the same password that you use to access your USA email account. So you'll see this screen pop up whenever you try to go access something that's only available to our students and faculty. Okay, so this is CINAHL. And then I'm going to pull up so the note I wanted to make about PubMed as we get into it here. It's always a good idea to go to PubMed through this particular link. Like I said, PubMed is a free database, so you can really just type in pubmed.com into your address bar and it'll take you to PubMed and you can search it without a problem. But the benefit of going to PubMed through the library is something called PubMed Linkout, which we'll talk about a little bit later, that lets you connect to the University of St. Augustine's full text access. So if you're just searching on PubMed.com, if PubMed doesn't know that you're affiliated with our library, they won't show you that additional full text that you can access because of your affiliation with our library. So you'll only see the open access sorts of articles. So it's always a good idea to go to PubMed through that particular link. The other thing that you can do, I'm trying to do side by side here, hold on. There it is. Okay, the other thing that you can do with PubMed is you can create your own My NCBI account. That's what I've done here. You can see I'm logged in. And there's a video on that PubMed page. There's a video showing how to link your My NCBI account. And that's just something you would create with your own personal information, however you wanted to do that. And then you can link it to our library. So then you can go to PubMed any way that you want to, and as long as you're logged in, it'll still know that you're affiliated with our library. So kind of your different options on doing that. If you're going to be using PubMed a lot, it's definitely worth it to create a My NCBI account, not only because it's easier to, not have to go through the library's website every time you go to PubMed, but also because there's a lot of other advantages. It'll save your searches for you. You can save things in different collections, and so that way if you've done a search, you can go back and say, okay, what words did I search before on this? Or you could even set up a search and then save it and set up alerts so that it'll actually email you when new articles come into PubMed that meet that search criteria of the search that you did, 2 weeks ago or whatever. So there's a lot of good advantages to creating a My NCBI account if you're planning on using PubMed a lot. Okay, so now I'm going to do some searches. The topic that I'm going to look for is kind of a question of what effect exercise has on people who have osteoarthritis in their knees. So from that, we were talking about how keywords, it's difficult to pick out keywords and know what words to put into a database search. So actually in a couple of weeks, you'll see an email about this a little bit later, but in a couple of weeks I'm going to be holding an advanced searching webinar. I invite you to come back and attend that one as well, and we'll talk a lot more about methods, different ways of choosing keywords that you'll probably find useful. But in the scenario that I just mentioned, I think our keywords are going to be exercise. That's the intervention we're looking at. Osteoarthritis is the condition, and the specific body part is the knee. So I think those three words are going to really get to the crux of what we're looking for. So I'm going to enter them there, and I get almost 2,000 results. Let's see over here in CINAHL. Now, funny thing about CINAHL, let me show you this. If I do the exact same search, all right, exact same search, I get nothing. But that's because of the difference in searching CINAHL. I actually want to go to advanced search. If you're searching more than one keyword in CINAHL, you want to use advanced search and type in each keyword on a separate line. And then we'll click search from there. So now we get some results on here. So first we can see right off the bat that we get a lot more results in PubMed than we do in CINAHL. Let me say that that's not necessarily a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but would you rather go through 2,000 results or 1,000 results? We'll really rather go through neither. You know, that's a lot to go through either way, but a lot of the times, the more results that you have doesn't equal a better search. Even if you have, the marker of a good search is when you have fewer, more relevant results. So in this case, PubMed does cover more journals, so you're going to get more variety of results in PubMed than you are in CINAHL. But that doesn't mean that the CINAHL results aren't going to be just as relevant. And like I was saying, if you're not looking to do a very thorough search, if you're just looking for a couple of articles on the topic, that sort of a thing, then you might want there to be fewer results to have to go through. Okay, so we just did a basic search in each of these databases. Let me make CINAHL bigger here, and let's look a little bit more closely at this. You can see over on the side here, or on the left-hand side, refine results. It gives me some options of ways to limit my results, make it so I have fewer results that more directly match what I'm looking for. First thing I'm drawing my eye here is source types. So I'm definitely going to want academic journals only, I think, for this, right? So we want things that are peer-reviewed academic journals. We don't really want to look at magazines or dissertations or pamphlets. If that is what you want to look at, great, you can select those. But in this particular search, I want to see what studies have been done and published in academic journals that show the effectiveness of exercise. So I'm going to select academic journals. And that brings us down a little bit. Now we've got 828. Maybe I only want to see things published in the last 5 years. So I can pull this little bar over till we get to 2010. All right, so I'll put that into effect here. So that brings us down about half to 404 results. Let's see what else they have here. You can look at subject, major heading. You might want to do that. You might not. Depends on if you feel like that meets what you're looking for. Physical therapy might be a good one to do this on. I'm not going to select any of those for this, though. You can also narrow it by a specific publication. It's probably a good idea, though, to get a wide variety of publications in this sense. You can look at age. You know, if we're talking about geriatric, you can maybe select that one, or depending on if that's going to affect your search. Same with gender and geography. So it really depends what you're looking for, but in this particular case, I don't think, I think this is good, a good starting place. Another one that they have is limit to full text. And what I'm going to do right now is recommend that you don't do that, because what that'll do is it'll limit you to the full text that's available within CINAHL. And CINAHL does not contain all of the full text that we have total in our library. So what I mean is that just because the full text isn't available through CINAHL doesn't mean the full text isn't available through our library, because CINAHL is just one piece of our library. So keep that in mind, and we'll talk about that a lot more a little bit later. Let's jump back over to PubMed and look and see what options we have over here. Okay, so I notice over here we've got the similar types of limiters and things like that, and I notice there's not an option like there was in CINAHL to limit it by scholarly publications. And there's a good reason for that. It's because PubMed only includes scholarly publications. So you're not going to get a lot of magazines or pamphlets or things like that that we were seeing in CINAHL. It's only going to be peer-reviewed scholarly publications in PubMed. We can do 5 years, like we did in CINAHL. So let's select results published within the last 5 years. That brought us down a lot. We can also, there's a lot of other things that we can do here. So there's additional filters where you can do language, age, different things like that, like we've already seen. So it is usually a good idea to select English in PubMed unless you do read another language, because PubMed includes articles that are in other languages. Sometimes the abstract and the title and things like that will be translated in PubMed into English, but if you were actually to look at the full text of the article, it would be all in a foreign language. which wouldn't be very helpful if you don't read that language. So I'm going to select English and see if we had any in this one. There's looked like about 50 of them disappeared off of that. So there's about 50 or so that were in a foreign language. So this is a really neat thing about PubMed that CINAHL does not have. You can limit your results by the type of article it is. So if we look at this customize button, so it has two that it just shows you automatically. These are probably the two that are used most often, clinical trial and review. But if you click on customize, look at all of your options, all different kinds of articles that are available, article types that are available through PubMed. So we can say systematic reviews is a good one, randomized controlled trials is a good one, case reports is something that we use a lot. So we'll show those. That just makes them appear over here. But if I wanted to actually select one of these, I would click on it. So I want to see all of the systematic reviews on this topic. So I'm going to click on systematic reviews, and that brings me down to 95, which is probably a pretty manageable number, especially when we're talking about systematic reviews. So that's a really great feature of PubMed that CINAHL doesn't have, is that you can limit your results according to very specific types of articles. And we see again, like we did in CINAHL, the text availability, free full text and full text. And again, I would avoid using this limiter. What you would want to use instead if you were in PubMed is this University of St. Augustine filter over here. So this is going to show us the 45 articles that are immediately available through the University of St. Augustine Library. And also, we're going to talk about this a little bit later as well, but actually any of these articles are available to you through our library. If they're not immediately available through our library, we can get them for you from another library that we partner with. So there's nothing that you would find on PubMed or in CINAHL for that matter that we wouldn't be able to get the full text for you, and usually in a reasonable amount of time, which we'll talk about that in a little bit. Just so we can see what that looks like, let me jump over. So these are all the University of St. Augustine specific articles. Just to show you how to get to one of these articles, the full text. If you click on one of them, let's say I'm interested in this one. When I'm on the abstract view of this article, I can see there's a little USA Shield icon over here. There's also a publisher's icon, but that's not going to help me. What's going to help me is the USA Shield icon here. So I click on that. I had already logged in to our network, I guess, here, so I don't need to log in again, but if I hadn't logged into anything yet, it would prompt me to log in at that point. And now I can click on this to get to the full text and open up the PDF. And there it is. So that's a PDF that would not be available to somebody who was not affiliated with a library that had a subscription to that particular journal. So benefits of using the library. Okay, at this point, are there any questions? Just kind of doing basic searching and limiting your results in a database like PubMed, a database like CINAHL. And by the way, any other database that you choose from that list is going to be pretty similar as far as your basic searches. You're going to put keywords in. Most of them are going to have options for you to limit your results by different categories depending on what your needs are. So those are all going to be typical in any database that you use, even though we only looked at 2 specific ones tonight. We don't have enough time in this particular webinar to get into some of the more advanced search tactics, but I am going to be holding another webinar in a few weeks that will talk about those advanced search tactics if kind of piqued your interest here and you want to know a little bit more about how to get better results out of some of these databases. But for now, what questions do you have about searching in one of these databases or anything else that we've covered so far? Okay, in that case, again, if you're still typing, please continue to type and put your question in. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and go to our next topic, which is finding full text. As we saw in CINAHL, particularly, you're not always going to get the full text directly from the database that you're searching. Oh, Kathy has a question about how much notice is needed to get an article from an affiliated library. Actually, I'm going to put your question on the back burner just for now, Kathy, because I'm going to talk. I have a whole little section where I talk a lot more in detail about the article requests, and I think that'll answer your question when we get to that point. But let's first talk about how to access the articles that we do have available through our library, which is quite a bit. So, and then we'll talk about the affiliated library, the article requests, and interlibrary loan. That's a great question, though. Okay, so if you're searching in CINAHL, if you're searching in ProQuest, if you're searching the works cited list of another article that you found, if you've got a citation in front of you that your instructor has given you and asked you to go and read that article, how do you get that full text? That's the question we're talking about now. All right, so this is my nice little Wordle of some of our full text finding tools. These are actually in order of how I would recommend trying them, the order of sort of their usefulness. PubMed link out. We've already seen PubMed in action a little bit and how you can get to full text through PubMed, but you don't have to do a search by keyword in PubMed to get the benefit of linking to full text through PubMed. For example, you could, instead of putting in keywords to search a topic, you could copy and paste an article title into the search box, and then when that article comes up, you can look for the little shield, the USA shield that we talked about. If it's there, you could click on it and go right to the full text of that article. So you can use that, use PubMed just as a full text finding tool if you already have the citation and you're just looking to get the full text of it. We've also got Google Scholar, which is in this case a great tool for full text. Let's talk about that. Okay, let me jump over here. Let me jump to CINAHL. These were the results that we had earlier. Let me look at some of these. Now you can see on the top few results that we have here, the full text is not included in CINAHL. Here's an example of one that does have the full text included in CINAHL. You can see that our first few results don't. But again, that doesn't mean that our library doesn't have that full text, which is what I'm attempting to demonstrate for you here. So let's say I'm looking at this article and I say, you know, wow, that would really be a good article to read. It sounds just like what I'm looking for. So I'm going to copy and paste the title of the article. I'm going to copy it here. I'm going to, I'm going to jump over to, let's demonstrate it in PubMed first. I'm going to jump over to PubMed. I'm going to paste that article title. Hold on. Little technical blip here. Blip. Didn't copy right. Okay, let me try copying this again. Copy. All right, that should work that time. All right, let's try that again. So I'm going to copy and paste, there it is, the article title into PubMed. Instead of keywords, I put in the whole article title. See that? It pulled it up. And looky there, the USA Shield icon. So I know I can click on that to go to the full text. Even though the full text wasn't included in CINAHL, again, we see here that that doesn't mean the full text isn't available through our library. And you'll see a lot of the databases like that. All right, so now I can download the PDF of this article. And there it is. So that's one way to do it. PubMed is the one tactic. As I was mentioning, you can also use Google Scholar. And this is something that you would want to set up, which I'll go over quickly how to do that after I demonstrate it. All right, so here's Google Scholar. I'm going to, again, put in the article title, click on the magnifying glass. I'm not seeing it pull up immediately. Let me see if maybe we need more of the article title. For the record, I did try this earlier today and it worked. But that's always the way things go. Okay, so let's put in the rest of the article title and try that. Okay, see now it comes up, so it just wasn't finding it based on what I gave it. Okay, so now I've got, this is the article. I can make sure it matches based on the title and the author and the journal and the year and everything. And then I've got a little notation over here that says find at USA, so I can click on that. I can click on this, and again it takes me to where I can download the PDF of this article. So I mentioned there is something that you need to set up in Google Scholar to make that work, to see those USA, find at USA notations there. So let me show you how to do that. Go back to Google Scholar. Okay, so if you're in Google Scholar, what you would want to do is be logged into your own personal Google account, and you would have a Google account if you use Gmail, if you use YouTube, if you a lot of the other Google tools, you probably already have a Google account. So it's really easy to set it up if you've already got a Google account. It's easy to set it up if you don't too. You just need to create a Google account first. So you go from Google Scholar, logged into your account, you go up to Settings, you go to Library Links, and type in St. Augustine. See, I already have it selected. But what you do, if you type in St. Augustine, it'll bring it up, you put a check mark next to it, and then you just hit Save. And that'll activate the University of St. Augustine library links in your Google Scholar account, so that way you'll see those Find at USA links off to the side. Now, if you didn't catch that, or if you want to try this again later, there is a video demonstrating that process back here on the Finding Journal Articles page of the library's website. Under the Finding Full Text section, you can click on Google Scholar, and there's a short video here that shows you how to set up those links, just like I just showed you. So the last tool for finding full text through the library is the A to Z Journal Locator. I'm not really going to demonstrate that one. If you click on A to Z Journal Locator here, there are a couple of videos showing the different ways that you can use the A to Z Journal Locator. But for the most part, I kind of advise, it's the least useful of the tools, let's put it that way. It's a little persnickety. It likes things to be just so. It doesn't like abbreviations. It doesn't like a lot of things. It's just very picky. So sometimes you'll get false negatives in A to Z Journal Locator. In other words, you'll do a search for a particular journal or a particular article, and it'll say, oh, no results, when in fact it just didn't like where you put a comma or something like that. So it's really not my first recommendation. When you would want to use the A to Z Journal Locator is if it's something that might be an older article. For example, okay, so PubMed, LinkOut, and Google Scholar are really just going to show you what resources are available online. In A to Z Journal Locator, you'll also be able to see what journals we might have paper copies of on the shelf. So for example, the journal Spine, we have online coverage of Spine back to 1996, which is pretty good coverage. But on the shelf in the library, actually on the Texas campus, we have issues of Spine back to 1985. So if it's something older like that that we might not have online but we have paper copies of, you would only be able to see that in the A to Z Journal Locator. Now, as a distance student or a flex student who's only on campus, a few weekends a month, that sort of a thing, that might not do you much good anyway if it's just on the shelf. And so either way, if we didn't have it at all or if it was only in print, you would still need to request it through us to get a copy of it, because you wouldn't be able to necessarily come and photocopy it or scan it on your own like some of the on-campus students would be able to do. So before we move on to talking about those article requests, do you have any questions about finding full text and the tools that you can use to see if an article, if any article is available through our library. Yeah, Charles says he was having some trouble with the A to Z Journal Locator last week. That's a very common story. The A to Z Journal Locator is just a pain. It's just a pain to use, and if you can use PubMed or Google Scholar instead, I highly recommend that you do so because it's just a lot more seamless of a process. It's a lot easier. All right, so let's talk about article requests. Our interlibrary loan, we sort of use those two terms interchangeably. They're not always exactly the same thing, but for your purposes, they are. So in either of these cases, there's an article that you want the full text for, and you can't get to it online through our library. So whether we pull that article from the shelves in the library and scan it for you, that would be an article request, or if we get it from another library for you, that would be an interlibrary loan. It's all the same process to use, so we use those terms sort of interchangeably. Article requests and interlibrary loan are available to you for any article that you can find that we don't have available through our library. I have to say we do have quite a bit through our library, especially, of course, the journals that are most pertinent to the programs that we teach at the University of St. Augustine. But being a small school and a small library, we don't have just gobs and gobs and gobs of journal subscriptions and full text databases and things like that. So there are a lot of times that we need to use other resources, other partner libraries to get those resources for you. It's absolutely free. There's no charge to you at all for requesting an article through interlibrary loan. Kathy's question earlier was, how much lead time do you need? We say between 1 and 3 business days. So if you request an article from us, we usually can get that full text article to you almost definitely within 3 days, and likely and often within 24 hours. So it's usually pretty quick. If it's something that's a little bit more difficult to find, or if the library that we're getting it from is a little bit slower, they're a little short-staffed or something like that, it might take a couple of days. But our average is about half a business day. So most of these article requests come in very quickly. Now, to request an article through interlibrary loan, or to request an article in general, one of the easiest things to do is send an email to library@usa.edu with the full citation of that article that you need. It's always best to give us a full citation. That way we can't get that article confused with another article with a similar title or something like that. So give us the full citation. You can put multiple requests in the same email. That's not a problem at all. And just send that to us, and we'll receive it and get those articles to you. Now, if you don't get a response from us, letting you know that we're working on it within, I would say within a business day, then be sure to follow up with us. We've actually had it happen a couple times lately where we never got an email and didn't realize it till weeks later when the student came back and said, "Whatever happened to that article request?" And we very much understand the importance of getting these articles turned around quickly. So we do look at them within a business day and often have the article to you within a business day. And if that's not happening for you, get back in contact with us and let us know so that we can see what might have happened. And again, this is a great tool. I highly encourage you to use article requests. That way there's really no information out there that's out of bounds for you, that's not accessible to you. And it's not as quick as clicking a link and opening a PDF, but it is pretty quick. And we're getting quicker all the time at getting those articles out. So I do encourage you to use that service. Are there any questions about article requests or interlibrary loan? Oh, I should mention that there's also a form, an article request form, if you're in the A to Z Journal Locator. There's a form in there that you can fill out and submit that way. If you're already in the A to Z Journal Locator and you want to fill out the form, you can, but you don't have to. You can also email, especially if you're doing multiple article requests, it's sometimes easier just to include, all 5 requests in the same email rather than fill out a form 5 times, that sort of a thing. So either way, though, is fine. And just as a little note here, if you're wanting to reach the library for a question like an article request or maybe some advice on searching a database, something like that, if you email library@usa.edu, that's where you're going to get the quickest response, because that email inbox is monitored by all of the library staff, whatever library staff is working at the time, versus if you email me directly, for example. If I'm out of the office, I might not respond till the next day, but if you email library@usa.edu, if one of our other librarians is still at work, which happens with the time zone differences, then that librarian can help you right away. So I highly recommend that you email library@usa.edu, unless for some reason you're very specifically wanting to talk to me. But we've got a lot of great librarians on our staff at the different campuses, and all of us can help you with your questions. And I think that's it. So if there's any final questions, please let me know. I think I've got all of your names down. I know that some of you are required to attend this session for one of your classes, so I'm going to turn in a list of names for those of you that's the case. And I did get all the names down that I'm seeing in the box here. So if you have any further questions, just go ahead and type them in the chat box, let me know, or you can contact me later if you think of something later. Do I have the date for the advanced webinar? I do. I haven't sent out the email yet, but I do have it scheduled. Let me pull it up here. Bear with me, Kathy, while I try to find that. Yeah, that's going to be on Monday, February 16th. And it'll be 9 p.m. Eastern, just like this one. And I'm going to try to record that as well, in case, since I'm only doing